speaking of games, we watched
Squid Game.
Squid Game. Now, I heard this one talking about it for so long. Well, I mean, it wasn't so long. I guess it was probably a couple days. But he kind of wouldn't stop talking about it. I was like, man, was it that good? Here to report, yes, it was that good and so much more. I feel like for probably 2 days afterward, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
It just was so interesting. It was so well thought out. The writing and directing were fantastic. The foreshadowing, all of the just different storylines and people and relationships were second to none. The set design was insane. All of those beautiful colors. And I love to. Now, obviously, this show, it's a little intense, right? So for anyone who doesn't know what it's about, how would you describe it?
I mean, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but you'll still enjoy it. It's essentially a place where elites recruit a bunch of people who are in financial trouble to compete in children's games, such as red light, green light, to win money. But there's like kind of a sick twist to it. And there's just so many levels, and I don't want to ruin it. And I will say, because I watched a lot from one of these TikTok videos that I made, you have to do it in subtitles. So when you watch it on Netflix, watch it in Korean with English subtitles. Don't dub it in English, because you're going to lose all of it. You're going to realize it's fake because you're listening to it in English dub. But if you actually watch it, we didn't even know any of these Korean actors. So you're also not like, man, that's Brad Pitt. He's doing a great job. Like, we didn't know any of the actors or actresses. You're also laser focused. You can't look at your phone or take a bite of anything because you'll miss it because you're reading it. You're just so locked in. It was so good that I rewatched it with her.
Yeah.
Like, I watched it on Saturday, and then I think I started watching it on Sunday with you, and it's just that good. It was from top to bottom. There was zero fat on that entire show. Probably the best constructed show that I've ever seen.
100%.
Just unique. I've never talked about a show like this so much and
thought
about it.
And here's the thing, too. For me, I'm generally not like someone who likes any gore, or you watch your action films, I'm like, go have fun, honey. When I first heard about the show, and that's why I didn't watch it the first time, I was like, based on the synopsis, I don't know if that would be my jam. I don't know if I'd be interested in watching that. But the way that they do it when they're playing these so-called games, it's a masterpiece. The music they put with it, like just everything. And it made it easier to watch if that's a thing for you. But man, there was one episode, and based on the relationships that these characters created, the acting, the writing, I sat there when the episode was over and I sobbed for like 6 minutes because I was so touched. It was just so good. And I don't know the last time I've watched something where once it's over, I'm still like, oh my God. Like, I don't do that in general. So it was a moment for me. And I was like, man, for something to really affect me like this. And I have to say too, watching in subtitles, you have to put your phone away because you don't want to miss a beat. If this is something that you're just going to kind of put on in the background, you are not going to enjoy it. Yeah. You'll miss everything because there are a lot of twists and turns, really clever writing, and you have to be fully focused. So it allows you in a weird way to truly unplug, because I don't know the last time I've watched anything without my phone right here. But whenever I would put this on at night, I go, my phone's going to be charging in the other room, and I'm fully focused. And that was kind of a nice break because I feel I haven't had that experience in years of just truly focusing and unplugging. And I want a season 2 so bad. So we'll see what happens. I think the director and writer said he's definitely going to bring in a team for this next go around because it was a lot. It's this one guy who did it all. And I also read too, he wrote all of the episodes and finished them in 2008. And the industry said, no, 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 no. And what do you know? Cut to today, it was finally made. It's been released legit, like worldwide.
Yeah.
And it's the #1 trending show all over the world. So for a reason, it's really, really good.
And the timing might have been I mean, maybe it wouldn't have hit. Maybe it wouldn't have played as well in 2010.
That's true too.
Maybe. I think it still would have because it was flawless. But there's just something about where we are right now.
I've read a lot though that when it comes to Korean entertainment, that everything is so well thought out and perfectly executed. Every story arc, every character, just as what we watched. Because I've read a lot about this because clearly I get obsessed with things and I have to know everything. And apparently that's really how all of their films and television shows are, that you really get that. They take a lot of their time and energy.
That's interesting.
So
I wonder what their volume is. Like maybe they don't care as much about, because the United States has, I mean, they've started producing, this was probably always been like this, but a lot of these artsy or well thought out kind of things, it's really hard to push it through because you have to just prove numbers. Like at this point, it's like, we'll give you 200 million, but how are you going to make 2 billion on this? And it's just, I think with us, it's just so much volume that every now and then there'll be a great film, but maybe with Korean films and shows, maybe they're...
Well, South Korea has what, 30 million people?
I have no idea.
I think that's right. Let's ask Siri. Hey Siri, what's the population of South Korea? Oh, 51 million.
Wow.
Huh. So, that being said, I bet those statistics and the data is different with America and our 330 million people versus... I mean, if it starts like that, obviously this went global, so that's a little different.
It depends on where you sell it to, because I know a lot of the films are being sold to China, which is where a lot of these global box office numbers come in. Like, I don't even think domestically, some of like the Rock's films or like some of these big movies, I think they're banking on the idea that it'll do 800 million in China.
Interesting.
So it's like the US 160 million, and then like overseas is like 500 million. So they're in their minds going, you know, that's a whole other podcast to break all this down. But there's a lot that goes into it. But it's, you know, it's a money business, but you can also sneak in some of the art pieces.
What isn't, right?
Yeah.
But I would love to look into that. Just what really goes on behind the scenes. And obviously, I mean, we've seen there are a lot of indie passion projects people try and get out there, but at the end of the day, a lot of these people know what's going to make the money, and that's why those projects get made.
Well, yeah, because if you're going to give someone $20 million, you probably want 30 million back at least.
Yeah.
So that's how you have to prove it with what stars are attached. And
remember that documentary, Seduced and Abandoned? Didn't they say, was it Alec Baldwin that they were saying, basically they were trying to pitch their show and they're like, yeah, Alec Baldwin, you won't sell. Was it him?
His name was only worth $4 million. So one of the producers were like, I don't need to read the script. I don't care what the script is. I just need to know who's attached so I can run the numbers. But Alec Baldwin during that time was only worth $4 million to investors. So he wanted $10 million for his film, but they're like, you're only going to bring in $4 million. You're Alec Baldwin. You need to get other people attached that will guarantee the 10
So
mil.
did he ever get anyone, an actress, right?
I think they kind of did. I forget. We should really rewatch that again because it's been years.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if they made it. I don't even remember.
I don't know.
Huh. We should watch that.
But they said 95% of making a film is getting the financing. Mm-hmm. Only 5% of the whole process is actually making the film. So it's a money business. And you have to prove the marketability. And that's why it's so important as well, even for what we're doing. When I talk about acting traditionally, you know, my marketability matters more in today's world than so many other factors on the list.
Yeah.
Unless I'm being chosen as like the second or third person in a movie or show because the number one person is who they've banked on. They're betting on this film because of Jeff. He'll bring in the 20 million and Freddie's, you know, actor number 3 or 4 and he's a good actor and we're going to pick him. But if I needed to bring marketability to a film, I only have so much, and that's why it's important for us of why we continue to build our social media, because that is what's growing our marketability, so that one day in the future, if we want to make a film or we want to go to the traditional route, you have more leverage. Because even though I worked in the industry for 10 years, they're like, great, you can act, but the marketability for somebody who was on The Walking Dead or somebody who's on Modern Family is going to crush me 1,000 times out of 1,000 times unless they already have the A-lister and I just happen to be there. So they go with who's going to bring the ticket sales the most.
And you see a lot of times from some really, really well-known people that it's incredibly hard to get their projects made. I think it was a director. He had a ton of Oscars and he threw them out of his window because he's like, these don't
Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the documentary.
Is that where I know that from?
He threw his 6 Oscars out the window because he goes, these are pointless, because he couldn't get funding.
Wow.
And because they just don't care. They're like, we need to see the whole money. Ryan Reynolds, I think, had Deadpool for 10 years before he got it made. Superbad they had forever. So a lot of these big like passion films from these A-list stars, they needed like 10 years of fame and in the making to get it made, because Ryan Reynolds in 2006 probably could bring in $4 million. Ryan Reynolds of 2021 can bring in $30 million.